Okay. That this recording will help me help everyone post this on LinkedIn and other areas. So I think we need to start. So thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Mapping Wildfire from a Plane. I am Sandeep Dal, live from California, where lots of wildfires have occurred in the past few years, and every year the devastation is bigger and a larger area is covered. And I am joined by my co-host, Al Harvey from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And we are joined today by our sponsors, Verimap, and represented by Corey Hughes and Cameron. Both of them are very sound technical knowledge and experience in wildfire mapping. And they will be answering our questions today. Our objective today is three objectives. One is to get to know from wildfire professionals who join and ask about how wildfires are fought right now, and what kind of challenges they face, and how and fighting the fires. The second is understand how the aerial mapping technology of Verimap, which is cutting-edge technology of Verimap, helps fight wildfires. The third thing is I want to also inform everyone that whatever information we provide to our sponsors here, Verimap, it is going to help them enhance their technology much faster, better, and so that they can support the wildfire professionals a little more. So having these three objectives, I want to welcome Corey and Cameron as the experts here. And Corey and Cameron, if I understand correctly, Verimap helps on before, during, and after the fire, correct? But today's webinar is only focused on during the fire. So I would like to know, let's start the webinar with asking a little more about yourself and the company as a Verimap, and then we go deep into these slides which you have provided us. So Corey, would you start?
Sure. So my name's Corey Hughes. I previously studied at the University of Calgary, the MGIS program, and I specialized in thermal remote sensing, and it was in urban environments. So this is a little bit of a change, but I've done some forestry LiDAR in the past. So this kind of mixes up a couple things together. So yeah, what about you, Cameron?
Cameron?
Oh, Cameron seems to be frozen there.
Yeah.
Okay. I know Cameron's been with the company for about 3 or 4 years now, but I've only been at the company for about 5 months. So his knowledge and in-depth knowledge of the company is definitely a lot more in-depth than mine.
Okay. And both of you are working on, I think you told me, have worked in the past on BC fires recently?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And then you will bring some experience on that. So I will go into these slides now, and I see 3 pictures here, and may I know the left picture, what does it tell about?
Yeah, the image you see on the left there, that's our Cessna 303, the private plane. And the image you see in the middle there, that's actually the undercarriage of the plane. And there's thermal and red, blue, green color sensors attached there. Okay. And there's just a hole cut in the frame of the plane for spy technology kind of thing. So the actual image you see right now, there's the camera rotates on an axis, and it rotates about 180 degrees. And currently what you see in the image is it at a 45-degree angle. So it actually, the image we took here was, while it was moving, it snaps into place, and you can set it for different settings, but what it ends up doing is it does a sweep of the ground while we're flying, and it enables us to cover more ground with higher resolution.
And so it keeps moving and keeps taking pictures on the way, or it stops in between and take pictures? How fast does this go? Or do you...
It's a few milliseconds. It snaps to each one. It makes a click sound too. So I've got a video of that, but it's not on this presentation. So if you were curious to see it in action, okay. It was pretty outstanding to see when I saw it the first time.
Maybe next time. Yeah. So Al, you have a question here?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Corey, how wide is the swath? How wide is that terrain that's being covered?
So it depends on our cruising flight altitude, but
Okay.
generally if we're flying about a kilometer off the ground, it can cover 4 to 5 kilometers for a swath. And then the image you see on the right there, that's dense smoke from a forest fire. And
Sorry.
it's actually very difficult to see through the smoke. I was gonna say, see the screen at this point, but it's difficult to see through the smoke. So the thermal sensor actually helps us to see right through that smoke and map the perimeter of the fire and any hot spots.
So so the thickness of the smoke and the how much of a smoke doesn't matter, or does it matter, or any kind of smoke you can see through?
We can see through any kind of smoke, but water vapor and clouds are a little more difficult to see through because those are different wavelengths.
Okay. And the benefit of that is, then you're saying that the benefit of that is you can go higher altitude and still cover more ground faster, and then take more more swath and more clear pictures, still take more clear pictures. Okay, so do you want me to run this this video here?
Yeah, sure.
Right now? Okay. And okay.
In war, Air Force jets identify enemy positions.
Can you turn it up just a little bit?
Accuracy. Soldiers on the battlefield use this intelligence to outmaneuver the enemy and to win the fight. When a massive wildfire ignites, Verimap soars high above the smoke by night, mapping hotspots on the path of the fire's destructive rampage. By the break of dawn, firefighters are using those maps to outmaneuver the wildfire. They bring it under control and put an end to the devastation. We are Verimap. Like the Air Force, we protect and empower the heroes on the ground. If you are wildfire professionals, let us be your eyes in the sky.
So that's good. Eyes in the sky, and we would like to know more about it in the next. So when we talk about eyes in the sky, what is this picture? What does it tell us?
This is an image taken from NASA's website. This is taken by MODIS satellite and overlaid on world map. So the red dots there are heat spots, and you can see they're detecting fires from space. One of the issues here is that it's a 1 kilometer resolution, and what that means exactly is that the smallest unit of measurement is a 1 by 1 square kilometer. So there's a lot of coarse information here, but you don't get specifics in terms of perimeters of a fire. This is more just general sense of where the heat is on the planet.
Okay, and where the fire is. So we are able to check these from NASA satellites also, right? So that means are they? So why go for aerial mapping from a plane or something like that?
Well, there's orbital patterns that sometimes the updates will be 1 to 2 days for the MODIS satellites. So with our sensor in our plane, we can fly specific locations at a very fine resolution and at different times as necessary. So if you need like 3 scans a day, if the fire is moving quickly, we can get that done. So that's one of the differences here.
Okay. Do you have any question, or anybody have any questions here? We can stop, or we move to the next slide and ask more questions. Or okay, Al.
Yeah. So Corey, you mentioned that that from the satellite, we're looking at the pixel size would be about 1 kilometer square. And then what is it again from the aircraft? If we're flying at a lower altitude, producing maps of the fire, what is the pixel size on that?
Again, this depends on the altitude, but generally it's between 10 centimeters and 1 meter. So we're talking just a small little space of a tree. You can tell the temperature of. So,
and that can be helpful in what ways, having that level of detail?
Well, if you combine that with digital elevation model, you can actually help predict where the fire's spreading and how the fire is changing, and you can get specific detailed information on where the perimeter is. So you could clear cut around that area instead of just knowing a large 1 kilometer square. You can be more precise with where you combat the fire.
So that is how you help firefighters. So sorry, Al, you had a follow-up question.
Yeah, I was just saying, can you see people and can you see property and infrastructure, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we've used our sensor to detect livestock. So This is actually what came up a few months ago, but during the flooding in BC, one of the uses we thought of for our sensor would be to detect livestock that's still alive, because lots of the spy planes and sensors, they don't detect heat. So this might help them prioritize looking for livestock that's still alive rather than detecting lost livestock.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cameron, welcome
guys.
back.
Yeah, sorry. Well, internet router reset.
Yeah, at the right time. And
Yeah, right.
yeah, so what do we see here? It seems like British Columbia to me. What do we see here, Cameron?
Yeah, this is the fires that Map flew in 2021, mostly in BC, quite a large area. And you can see from the perimeters, each of these blobs of color here represents a perimeter of one of the missions that we flew and the extent of the fire on that date. So different colors, you'll see one fire might have multiple colors, and that'll be the expansion of the fire over time. And that's a really nice thing to have. What we have is we can fly up to 14 missions at a time, or that was a record last year. Depending on the bigger fires, some of them will take a couple hours to scan, but some of those very small ones, like on the east side there, we can fly just one single pass. I mean, the pass is 7 to 10 kilometers wide, our swath, so we just pick up the whole fire at once.
So you were able to. So my question is, when I look at this this slide, it looks like you flew on all of them at once in one night, or was that happening in different places at different times?
Different places, different times. So you have about 150 different fires there, and we would do between 4 and 14 every night. And so this is just the cumulative map.
And it depends on the incident commanders and the government officials to decide, you know, where you will fly in that night, so that they can plan their tactical actions in the morning. That's what the objective is. And who
Exactly.
else? Who? Okay, you are flying. You're doing everything. You are taking care of. You're pulling that information, taking pictures. Who actually is the end user of that? Who is actually getting that information finally in their hand? Is this the firefighter or the incident commanders in the at the ground level, at the tactical level?
Well, something we found is interesting is every province and territory seems to have a different way of doing it. And this is something that we're looking to understand a little. There are some documents that explain the process, or like where the data goes. But generally, our data goes to the GIS department of the incident commander, and that is distributed to the team leads of the firefighters on the ground. And then each individual firefighter may have a cell phone or a mapping device that he can see the perimeter that we've provided, with all of the additional insight that the GIS command, incident command, has provided.
Okay. And do you guys have anybody has any question, Al, or anyone for Cameron?
Yeah. What happens in terms of getting that information to something like a water bomber?
Oh, we'd love to know. So one of the things we have can and can deliver in real time, pretty much. So anything that we have could be delivered as fast as we can get it to a water bomber, or right to the ground level.
Yeah. So another question, just Al, I just thought of is, so you're saying is it's not only in the night, but you can also go in the morning flights and also take morning and then be the, what do you call that, bird dog for the fire? What do you say that? So that you can tell the bomber where to offload. Is that what happens?
For the water bombers, most of the water bombing happens during the day. There's a piece of equipment called the bird dog, or the airplane that spots where the fire is and directs the placement of the water from the water bombers. We would be able to assist the bird dog and in seeing how effective the water has been.
I understand. Okay.
I have another question, Sandeep, and this is something that we haven't really talked about before in previous conversations, Corey and Cameron, but when I look at this map, are there municipalities in the paths of these fires who were collaborating at all with parks officials, with government officials, Do towns and cities get involved at all?
The towns and cities are in the way of these fires. This is southern BC. You have Lytton, Vernon, Kamloops, Kelowna. They all had fires pretty close to them. Osoyoos. Mostly, it's directed by an incident commander who can pull resources from wherever he needs to in order to best combat the fire. So
Okay.
if that's from the town, yes, of course, the volunteer firefighters or everybody is going to be assisting as best they can.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, Joel is a volunteer firefighter, and I was
Awesome.
wondering, for Joel, what kind of information do you guys receive before you go out to a fire? And I know you don't specifically combat for wildfires, but it's just a quick question for you. What kind of
Yeah, I
information
think-
they tell you?
When it's integrated from a volunteer or even a municipal department dealing with wildland, it kind of jumps out of our district and we get a task number to assist them. And we have a little bit of training to how to communicate within their command structure. And vice versa, wildland fire guys will not have the same gear that we will. They're tactically very different in how we approach the fires. Ours is very structural basis. So, we have our breathing apparatuses and our ability to get close to that more toxic smoke. That is the stuff that's burning in a household. So when we apply our strategies, it's a lot more of the protection of the zones, like you talked about, kind of a rural district where you might have a couple outlying houses. And so we would set up our kind of sprinkler system or, a big stream of water onto a house to cool it as the fire approaches and create a bit of a fire break that way. And so integrating the two, when we're tasked to help with a wildland team, having that information come, like you said, from your airplane's visuals, all that information would go to the tactical to command. So they could then report to us and give us our strategic plan of how they want us to attack. And getting a map that would show, they go into wind direction, they go into speed, they go into temperature, they go into terrain really plays a big effect on wildfires. And so your ability to fight a fire on, a 45-degree slope as opposed to a flat plain in Alberta is very dependent. And, the command is going to have their attack plan based on, what they're trying to protect, whether it's homes, livestock. If it's crown land, they're just going to technically leave it because it's a natural thing that's happening. But yeah, those high risk areas is where, in order for you guys, you could get that great imaging going and focus on an area that is a high risk, whether it's infrastructure, power lines, homes, businesses, that kind of thing. That would be a heightened, that's where we would need to focus first. I hope that answers the question.
We kind of saw that happening last summer in Colorado, right? With the fire that hit the outskirts of the city,
Yeah.
in the Boulder area.
Wow.
And I think like Kelowna is a great example. We had a large fire in Kelowna that, the Kelowna Fire Department tried to keep it at bay from crossing the, even the highway. We had a lot of closures this past summer on the Coquihalla and everything because the fires jumped across. And so they just closed the highway for that section. It almost has to burn through. They clean everything up and then it opens again. They're not going to sit there protecting a road as opposed to a building or livestock or,
Yeah.
infrastructure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And please jump in. And if you have a good experience with firefighting and all that, we would like to hear from you, and so that we can learn and develop what I was talking to Cameron and Corey is they would like to know what information is going in the hands of the firefighters and the tactical commanders, incident commanders, and see what else information, because they have tons of information when they are picking up the pictures, and how deep they can analyze and what they can analyze to help you move forward and do your job better. They would like to know. So please jump in the conversation and ask questions, provide your feedback. So let's move on to the next slide. Is it okay?
I've got one more thought actually
Okay.
to expand upon what Joel said. knowing the slope and elevation, that kind of thing, that helps you guys fight the fire. So when we do our scans, we actually don't provide any digital elevation models, but we could create a digital elevation model using our sensors. So that's actually something that isn't an output that we provide for them, but we could potentially. So it was good that you mentioned that. Thank you.
Okay. And so let's see, what do we see here? I see 2 colors, 3 colors. What does it mean?
You got
Cameron?
this one, Corey? I'll take it.
Yeah, sure. I got the first few ones while the router was out. I'll get the next one.
All right, so what you're seeing here is a rendered image of what we provide to the fire, to the incident command, to the GIS department. And we've colorized the imagery. You have Google Earth on the background, and then 1 day's fire extents. The perimeter is in pink, is the border, and then the orange is false color of where the fire actually is burning, just to mimic what it would look like during the day. The green perimeter is where the fire extended to in the following days. It was a perimeter that we flew a few days later. And what this goes to show is that it's very difficult to forecast exactly where a fire is going to go based on a few days before. So the pink is, a few days before, and who would have known that the fire was going to go exactly down to the south, down to the southwest, just in those forks. And so the frequency and rapidity of mapping is, I feel, pretty important in knowing where the fire is and whether or not it is, how close it has got to any critical infrastructure or lives, communities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, yeah.
And I think what you're saying is, and I agree, in any business or any activity we do, I think the trend analysis is very important. And that's what you're saying, is that with 2 or 3 days of analysis and overlapping them together onto a screen, and then you can predict or you can not predict, but at least guess or some estimate in which area, which direction the fire is going and how much, and then put your resources in the right place. Like Joel was saying, protecting infrastructure and all that, right? So if you know where this thing is going by overlapping these things, and then they can take corrective actions. Is that what you're talking about from a trends perspective?
Yeah, exactly. And if, like, with the GIS departments, those governments have access to all sorts of other data, like Joel was saying, the wind direction, soil moisture, so they can compile everything and make a much better, more educated decision on where to apply those resources they have.
Okay.
Is there a video? Is there a video in this one? What's that play button there?
No, there's no video here. I think I don't have.
Okay.
Okay.
Even like on that previous slide there, to look at that, if that's the imaging that we're getting, I'm already seeing, and you can have like a directional there, north is in the corner, and I already see a southern pattern that the north is already previously burned. So we would, focus that around that road. You can see a nice hot spot right along the road. So that gives us a ton of information in terms of direction, usage, heat, availability, access, and then even an escape plan from that. There's huge information there. That's great.
Excellent.
Thank you, Joel. So now, what do I see here? I see a bunch of lines, and I would like to be educated.
All right, so this one looks a little noisy, but you can see the light purple line that's switchbacking, following along the black and white thermal image.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually what we've flown in our plane. So our GPS instrument tracks where our plane's gone, and it happens to line up nicely with the swath of the plane. So you fly about 1 kilometer and you get a 4 to 5 kilometer swath there, and we fly around trying to spot as many fires as we can and spot where the fire is going, any hot spots. So if you take a look, the blue is kind of like the last image. It's the previous perimeter of the fire, and the green is where the fire is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And within this thermal image, we've actually identified a threshold for hotspots. So certain values of pixels that are representative of high heat are mapped from yellow to red, and red being a hotter value. So on the perimeter of the fire, you can see some of these yellow and orange and red spots. So This is kind of how the data comes into us and how we create the perimeter files for the fire crew that we end up sending. So we actually gather a lot more information than we're sending, because
Yeah.
the thermal images are quite large and the perimeter files are quite small. So we want to be able to have the files as small as possible for the ground crew, because they don't want to wait on downloading a file.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the objectives of why Remap is sponsoring this, and to find out actually from what other information is needed. You know, we are providing what we think it's providing, but we have tons of. You're saying you and your team has tons of data and potential and predictive models and all that, and all that, and then you can make some analysis and provide that to the right authorities, whether it is the incident commanders, firefighters, or even wildfire professionals, or even for in the future, right? That's what you're saying. Okay.
Just to put this slide into scope, we
Oh,
spent
yeah.
months
Okay.
updating and backing up our fires that we've scanned over the last few years. So for fire crew, they see it as a small, like 100 kilobyte file, but for us, we have like petabytes of information, terabytes just sitting around. So yeah.
So Joel is raising hand. So Joel, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just on a photo like this, for me, even from being on the BC side, the information that is gathered here in terms of those hotspots, even the progression of it, a huge aspect. I was talking to one of my colleagues at the fire department about this, Corey, and your presentation that you're making. And within this, he had said that the local lumber companies, if it's going through Crown land, if a fire quickly goes through, you know, it just kind of burns the needles and the branches, the lumber is still good on the inside, and they will want that information where it hasn't burnt as hot. It won't destroy the quality of the wood on the inside of the tree. And so the lower burning temperatures can actually still be salvaged, and the hotter stuff, obviously, it's destroyed more of the lumber. So the price, so when these forestry companies look at a wildfire area in the scope of the temperatures, they can pick and choose where to start salvaging lumber and where they'll maybe do last, because the last stuff, if it hasn't been as charred, it won't decay as fast. And so the value in the knowledge that they get from the temperature of the fires can really lay out the groundwork for them and how they're going to still claim that resource of lumber and make a profit from it. Instead of going there too late, the bugs have gotten to it, it's decayed, and they no longer have value. So huge cost efficiency for any forestry company.
I think that's very very valuable. Thank you, Joel. And what do you think, Cameron? Do you have you want to say something here, or we move on?
No, that was really fascinating information.
Very fascinating.
I understand that the BC does a post-burn analysis, and it's usually only after something's burned that you can tell exactly where the fire was.
Yes.
But really.
That's another reason for us to scan more often, to have that information of how hot it burned through certain areas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it helps in climate change initiatives. It helps in all that. You know, we talk about so much about climate change and this thing. So I think we will be able. You should be able to talk about those connections also. So let's move on to the next one. Thank you very much. Now I see a picture. Can I see some flyovers or something?
Yeah.
Who will go
Corey, do you mind if I get this one?
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Right, so this is one of my favorite pictures. It's just really, it's a zoom in, it's a close up of one of the fires that we flew, and it's an aerial shot looking straight down. Again, it's falsely colored, so it's not really, you're not really seeing the orange of fire, but everything that is orange is fire. You see a little temperature gradient scale there: white, hot, orange, yellow. Anything that's blue is ground. What you're really seeing here is the resolution that you can get from an aerial image versus a satellite image. So you're also seeing a lot of infrastructure there. That satellites, the best ones right now, are providing a pixel size of about 375 meters for every pixel square. The worst ones, like Modus, are 1 kilometer pixel squares. And so using a 1 kilometer pixel square, you couldn't see if the fire is crossed. What you're seeing here, right down the middle is a river. Right to the side of the river, to the left is the highway. Right to the left of the highway is a CN rail line.
Mhm.
And what happened here is that we were called out one week, flew the fire, everything was held on one side, on the west side of the highway. And then we were called, there was a big windstorm, and we were called out just to see what had happened. Went out, and not only had the fire crossed the highway, but had jumped across the river, and we had to continue scanning to the east to see that the fire had grown so far with the wind and had gone beyond anybody's guess of where the fire had got to.
Hmm.
So it's yeah.
Yeah. So and so the entire city was under siege here, and it must have been a very bad situation. And this is what Joel was talking a few minutes back. Getting that information on time and flying at the right time or more times. I think a lot of property infrastructure and lives can be saved. I have a question here. How high are you up there when you take such pictures? And are any of you go up in the air, or you are cushy people?
Oh yeah, I never really
behind
introduced
you
myself.
and just talking about stuff.
Yeah, no. So I am the aerial thermal operator and thermal analyst. So I'm up in the plane every night. We have a couple other guys who help out once in a while. Corey's getting trained up for coming up with me. He's so yeah, that's me.
Okay.
Sorry, I lost track there.
Thank you. No worries.
Altitude, what's the altitude?
he
on
asked
this?
you.
Altitude,
Yeah,
14,000 feet is our ceiling. That's operational limit of unpressurized aircraft is about 14,000 feet before you'll need oxygen. And so we are typically flying, if there's no cloud cover below us, as high as we can. So 14,000 feet gives us a swath width of about 11 kilometers wide. If there is a little bit of cloud above us or below us, we're going to be flying right up that cloud layer.
Right at the cloud level.
Right underneath it, yeah.
Right.
So hopefully it's higher than 2,000 feet. Anything below 3,000 feet, we're not going to be flying just for danger.
Yeah, one thing which it reminds me is why can't so you talked about satellites, you talked about your technology. Why? So what about drones? I know drones may not work on this kind of a situation because it is too large an activity. So what is the purpose of drones in this kind of wildfires, or does it work or not?
Drones are incredible in this kind of situation. They offer close area tactical imagery, tactical information. If you need to know where the fire is just right around you, that's great. Some of the drones that are coming out there do have a wide range, like you can fly quite a ways for a long time, but most commonly available drones have to be within a visual line of sight. Okay. And aren't able to fly long enough to cover an entire fire or an entire interest area. If the fire head is like, say, a 14-kilometer fire line, then a small drone will not be able to capture all of that. So that's the benefit of being able to fly higher and faster.
Yeah, and another thing to add too, with lots of the drones, the step stair system that our camera has that rotates on an axis to take a wider swath. This technology is usually a little too heavy to put on board a drone. So the drone will have to fly tighter flight lines, which wastes more time for the drones, which further adds to the flight time issue that drones can have.
So yeah, you were talking about the swath, right? So
drones are the sensors that are a lot lighter on drones are just fixed straight down.
Okay, so since you were doing this and taking a more swath and 4 kilometers, I think you said, you are able to capture more land and the less flights, and it may be also beneficial from a cost perspective. I don't know how the cost is between.
Yeah, it's more about the time than the cost, but the cost goes down drastically as well.
Okay.
So when you're fighting a fire, you can't have you could potentially send a fleet of drones, like many drones out to do the job, but to do it faster. But Yeah,
Okay.
the way our sensors set up right now, it's for speed of service.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next one. I see three beautiful, no, so three pictures, and I should not say that. On the left, may I know what this left picture talks about?
Yeah, you mind if I grab this one, Cameron?
Go, man.
Sure. So on the left there, it's this is a picture that we took out of our Verimap Cessna, just out of the cockpit there. So on the left, you can actually see the fire through the smoke, which is usually rare to see. So, but you can't see anything like the perimeter or any trees or any infrastructure at all. So I use the thermal sensor to see through these things. The image in the center there, this is actually, you can see some of the perimeter on the upper section of the middle image, but for the most part, it just almost looks like smoke and clouds. So you don't get a lot of information just using your eye. And
Yeah.
the image on the far right. Oh, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to know. So you're saying you can see the fire from the naked eye up there sometimes, but you can't figure out where the fire is going, how long it is, where's the edge, where's the perimeter, and whether it is growing at what rate it is growing. So all that information you cannot figure out, and you said you can figure out that information from your sensor cameras and see through smoke. So I was okay.
Okay, yeah, exactly. And then the image on the far right there, you can visibly see the perimeter of the fire. And luckily in this image, the wind was blowing opposite to the travel path of the fire. So this ends up being a rare image where you see in it, because normally the wind will blow the fire towards a direction. So this is a rare image where it almost looks the same as the perimeter that you see through the thermal sensor. So if you go to the next slide, you can actually see a thermal image that looks very comparable to the image on the right. So I could let Cameron take this one, but what I wanted to say comparing the two slides here is, if you were to imagine the image on the far right and then this image here, you can see the perimeter in the red and the orange there, and that's kind of what it would look like. But then all the clouds are omitted, and you just get the terrain info.
So one question I have is, when you are flying over this, if I look at the middle picture, I see smoke, and or even the far right picture, you see the smoke. Now I see at the edge there is fire, but when I am going over the smoke, your camera and your technology and your analysis and software and all that thing which you go, it is not only the camera, it is the working which goes behind the scene will also matter. Now, before we go to the next one, I have another question here. When Cameron, you are an operator with the pilot and in the flight, now how fast that information comes on the ground, and what kind of massaging of information analysis, or if there is any, to be done before it is passed on to the, say, the GIS people across the states, as well as to the incident commanders?
Yeah, the GIS group, each province has its own requirements as far as what they want the data to look like and how they want it delivered. Whether or not they need the fire name, how they want it described or separated into intense heat or scattered heat, what the perimeter looks like. So what we have on this side, we can immediately provide data points. Our scanner has a computer right inside that is going to pick out points, and points are of course much easier to send over internet than full images, and the points will be so dense that you'll be able to see a perimeter around the fire line. So like if you could flip to the next slide there. So that's, you can see right in the middle there, a kind of scalloped curve, kind of like a shoreline of the fire, and the fire is progressing southward. And it looks like it's progressing southward. What you can see here though is that you don't see any smoke. All you see is ground and fire, and that's compared to the previous slide. You'll see lots of fire and a cloud. And the next slide you see it just straight fire. So what we're doing in the air, we are getting all the hot spots, and those can be sent directly to anybody immediately. So no massaging required. They're already geolocated. Any small isolated hotspots are sent right away. But in the air, we can also create, and once we land as well, we're sending these information down to the ground. Our GIS techs are going to create a perimeter around the fire. So that takes not too long, but is done after we land.
It is interesting to
Sometimes
note too that there is an internet on board the Cessna, and we can send these point files while we're flying for them to process while we're in the air.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a very time saver, because time when everybody starts their morning routine and starts going out to put out these fires or control these fires, I think the information is already in the hands of the right people. That's what you're saying, and that information can be the point wise information, which is the telling something about the fire or enough about the fire so that they can take action, and then your analysis team and the techs and all that make a better analysis of it. And by the time maybe after you land, a few hours from that, or a days, how much time does it take?
Or half an hour.
Oh, okay,
Or-
that's fantastic. So after you land, half an hour, you have that information to the right team, and they take action. Okay,
That's
wonderful.
optimal. Sometimes it's an hour depending on the size of the fire or how detailed we're being.
Yeah.
And it really depends on what information is required. I've spoken to some fire guys, and they're saying, we didn't even know you guys were flying our fire. All we got was information sent to us from the guys that we sent the info to. And they were saying it would have been really helpful for them to have the hotspots right on site, because they would love to have that information raw right there. There is going through the chain and is of course important, but who can take advantage of this information more easily is something we want to know. Just because the better it's available to more people, that's what you need it to be. Everyone needs it.
Thank you very much. Al, do you have any question, or anyone?
I don't at this point, no.
Okay. And I see we want to work more closely with wildfire professionals, and that's why we are coming up with these webinars where we will be interviewing experts. We will be interviewing the wildfire professionals, firefighting professionals, and all, and know their stories, know their challenges. Like Joel provided such a wonderful feedback right now, I think, about lumber and all that, right? So that's priceless, right? So we would like to get more information about that. So we'd like to hear Cameron and Corey, what do you want to say about this slide, and what you want to say anything more?
Yeah, I've one thought about this, and it actually came while we were chatting with Joel. Knowing extra thoughts that they know will help us to provide more useful information and knowledge for ground crew. So right now, one of our outputs is not to provide a digital elevation model. They have that data at hand, but having an updated digital elevation model with the fire information could be more beneficial. So that's something that we could provide, but we haven't been asked for. So yeah, this is one thought.
You have not been asked for, maybe because they don't know such things that exist.
Exactly. That's why we should all be talking about this kind of stuff.
We should be talking about that. And there's a lot of gap in between this and what we can provide. The technology is there, and you can do a lot. So Cameron, do you have any thoughts on this? I think this is the last slide, and then we can open for questions more.
Yeah, the photos here really represent like the grunt work, the down in the dirt, a lot of effort, a lot of sweat and blood and tears put into fighting wildfires. And we see these guys in the hotels that we're staying at, that everybody's birthed in the same kind of area. And it's just really important. It really brings home how important it is to help the guys who are right there on the ground, who can't see above the trees and can't see where the fire is, just to be able to help them out like that. So that's one of the reasons I really like these photos here.
Okay, awesome.
Right.
And
I see Mario has a question in chat.
Yeah, okay. What is the question? Do you want me to open?
He says, I understand step-stair systems can see wide areas but can it be configured to fly low for more detail or below cloud cover? And I think Cameron elaborated on that just a little bit already. Yeah, the lower you fly, the higher resolution you can get. But if you fly lower, the step stair system can't see quite as much. So the higher you fly, the more the swath covers.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can add on to that with
Sure.
like flying low gives us, like you said, higher resolution. So right now, hot spotting or holdover fires after a fire front has passed by, if you're still trying to find out where that fire is and just to extinguish the last remaining piece of fire, you're looking for hot spots, which are more difficult to find at high altitude. So yes, the plane can fly closer to the ground and pick up these hot spots that I believe mostly helicopters and maybe drones are typically used for.
Okay, and I think we have everything for today, and I would like to call everyone and request everyone who is listening to this podcast, even in a recording later on, is to reach out to Al Harvey and I. We are the co-hosts of this webinar and a series of webinars. We would like to interview you. We would like to get more information about you. And also we would like to know if there is any topic which impacts this wildfire, which can help us build alliance and which can help us develop technology and actually improve how we can fight these wildfires. We would like to know about those topics and know about your stories, and maybe feature you in one of these webinars in the future, or maybe have you as a panelist in these webinars. Any thoughts, Al or Corey and Cameron?
Just like to thank everybody for joining the call.
Okay, Corey.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you.
listening, everybody. I don't have any further questions at this point.
Yeah,
Cameron.
Sandeep, Al, thanks for hosting. It's been great.
Thank you very much
And
for everyone. And we will have another session in next 1 to 2 weeks. We have many. I think the second one, which was told to me by a couple of people, was that we should talk about fire prevention very soon, rather than we talked about during the fire. We should talk about before the fire, and I'll invite Corey and Cameron again on that. Okay.
Yeah, were there any questions from the audience?
No, I don't see
Is there
that.
just text or?
Thank you very much, and see you guys in the next. And let's keep in touch on LinkedIn or our emails. If you reach out to Verimap, what is the website name? Verimap.com.
Verimap.com. Yeah.
Verimap.com, or reach out to my website is sandeepdal.com. It's easy, or LinkedIn is easy, so we can actually make things work. Thank you very much.
Please let us know if you have friends, colleagues that you think would benefit from this kind of networking as well. And thanks again.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.